I regard the work of motivation the most important work in the history of man. That behind everything that happens is motivation. A wheel doesn't turn unless a man's motivated. A guy doesn't go to the top in sports unless he's motivated. A scientist doesn't study or do research unless he's motivated. I want to get to you tonight. I want to motivate you. There's no selling without motivation. This whole thing won't turn and keep going unless there are key people motivated, keeping this thing going. I agree with Edison when he said genius is 1% inspiration. It is 99% perspiration. How America needs this language today. The language of effort, work. I love the sports world because they're not ashamed of sweat. We spend $1 billion in America trying to get rid of sweat. Our favorite colloquial expression is no sweat. I love the sports world because it says to be great, you've got to put out. It's effort, it's work. I love it because it's a language of self-reliance. It tells you that nobody's going to run your race for you. When you step up into that batter's box, you're all alone. And you either strike out or hit, depending upon your ability, not anybody else's. You can't beg the question, can't give yourself putts. You're out there running, that old stopwatch tells you exactly how fast you are. You'll go over that crossbar or you don't. It stays up or it comes down. You can measure yourself by reality, by objectivity. You've got to look yourself right in the eye. But it tells you this, you aren't great in sport unless you yourself do it. Here again, America needs to hear this language. We live in a time when people think somebody else can live our lives for us, think for us, emote for us. The sports world tells you this, you alone run that race, you alone are in that ball game, you alone must do your job. It all depends on you. That's the language of American individualism. And that's why I think the sports world speaks this language almost better than any other institution today. I love the sports world too because it talks about teamwork. It says you've got to work, block and tackle with the other guy. If you want to be a champion, you've got to analyze yourself. You've got to recognize your weakness. And you've got to change that weakness into power. Now, there isn't a person who's ever lived but what has a weakness of one kind or another. I love the sports world because you can't tolerate weakness. If you've got a weak defensive line, that offense will keep coming through that line until you plug up the hole. You can't say, please don't come through the weak side of my line. You've got to plug that baby up. If you're not hitting the mark, the coach pulls you out. You've got to make the shots. The sports world does not tolerate weakness. If you're not going over that crossbar, you don't blame the wind or someone else. You build your arms up. You change your weakness into power. I think of Rocky Marciano was boxing. Very early part of his career, after about 3 rounds, he couldn't hold those big old arms up. And after about 3 rounds, those arms would start down, and then the guys would get to him. Well, they said to him, quit, Rocky. You can't be a champion anyway. 5'10", 185 pounds. You don't have the right leverage and so forth. Quit. Instead of quitting, Rocky Marciano went down into a local swimming pool, submerged himself in the water, and started swinging those arms against the buoyancy of the water. Every now and then he'd come up and breathe, building his lungs as well as his arms. By the hour, that guy stayed in there working on his weakness. Well, it's an unbelievable story of a guy that retired the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. Undefeated. Archie Moore told me this in San Diego. He said, Bob, from that opening bell till the end of the fight, that guy would just keep coming. First he'd pulverize your arms, then he'd get to your chest, then he'd get to your head. Rocky Marciano became the heavyweight champion and retired undefeated because he changed his weakness into power. You will never meet a more mediocre guy than the one you're talking to. I'm 5'10", I weigh 185 pounds. I've got an average pan. I've got an average brain. I've got an average voice. Average. The question I want to ask you is this. If I can do this with my average life, what can you people in front of me do with your super average ability? Those of you with tremendous brain power and good looks, fantastic voices, those of you with tremendous bodies and unbelievable power, what can you do with your life? Don't give in to weakness. I can tell you those slow legs, if you keep running, they'll get fast. I can tell you that if you lift weights and climb rope and all this, your arms will get strong. Your frail body will get strong. I can tell you that even if you stammer and stutter and can't talk, you can work on it until your vocal cords respond. They will speak. I can tell you, you can take what you've got and change it into power. People have the idea that the great athletes are the gifted, or they're endowed with unbelievable inheritance or coaching or opportunity. That the guys who are great because they're way up there and we're way down here. Not true. The difference between a gold medal winner, a silver medal winner, a bronze medal winner is so slight that you can hardly see it. The difference between a champion and us is a little bit more that champion put out. It's the difference of 98.6% as over against 98.5%. I worked the Innsbruck Olympic Games for NBC about 4 years ago. I saw 13 gold medals. 13 gold medals won by less than 1/100th of a second. Now you can't even see 100th of a second. That electronic scoreboard at the end of that stadium, you can't even see it. It flashes by so quickly. There's no way I can impress upon you 100th of a second. It's fractions of inches. Can you imagine skating 10,000 meters and losing by 1/100th of a second? That's what was actually done in the Innsbruck Olympic Games. You talk about wetting your lips. I've seen these guys wet their lips and gulp. They go down to that line. They're quiet, get set. Pow! That gun goes off. You talk about adrenaline, all the physiology, muscles move and everything, elbows flying. 6 men went down the straightaway. They all lunged into the tape exactly together. They all went into the thing together. You couldn't tell who had won. The photo finish revealed that Lindy Remigino's nose was 1/4 of an inch longer than all the other guys. You know, that guy used to be so ashamed of his beak, but boy, he really holds it up in pride now, I'll tell you that. That's the difference between a gold medal and a silver medal. I'll never forget the Olympic tryouts down in L.A. Don Bragg came running down the runway. He had a pull muscle. He was hopping in spots, but he hit that box. He sank in, he pulled, he went up over the crossbar, 6 inches. Terrific leap in the injury that he had. The roar of the crowd, he came down, hit the sawdust. He felt so great. He forgot something. He forgot to push the pole back. He saw that thing coming at the crossbar, reached up for it, hit it, but it went on and hit the standard on the end, and the crossbar trickled off into his arms. He was on and off the Olympic team that quick. You want to know what's funny? Don Bragg would have beaten me in the Olympics had he made that ball. He would have been ready. I was hurt. There's no question in my mind but what he would have won the gold medal. Now, do you want to know what it takes to push back a pole? I'll show you. Look real hard. Would you like to see it again? Can you believe that that is the difference between a gold medal and not even making the Olympic team? That's it. I know myself. I was up over 15:10.5 in Milwaukee, the greatest jump of my life. I sailed over about 4 inches to spare. Turned. Never been a moment like that. Everyone's jumping up in the whole stadium. What a feeling. A world's record. You know what I did? Dropped my hands over. This thumb caught the bottom of the crossbar. Not the top of it, the bottom of the crossbar. And the thing trickled off and followed me down into the sawdust. You know, for 2 weeks I debated whether or not to cut that thumb right off. Well, what I'm trying to say is, it's the little tiny things that can beat you. That's the difference between holding a world's record and not. And I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, it's the difference between selling and not selling. It's that guy that goes out there every day. It isn't on Saturday afternoon. It's that training every day, that extra sprint, that extra chin-up or extra weight lift. That's what makes you a champion. It's the scholar who turns one extra page. It's the salesman who makes one little extra call or does some little extra thing. That's the guy that makes the million. That's the guy who hits the top. The little bit more, and the guy that cuts out the little bit less. If you're going to be a champion, you've got to concentrate. You've got to emphasize that.